They used to tell me just build it the people come. But make sure that what you build people want. It means you got to know the people, my guy. Be exclusive, but don't let the comma leave you, my guy. I know the people well. I love them daily. I daily help butterflies leave the shell. Do tell, I drop seeds in them. Words and thoughts, I believe in them. I use speech to bring out heaven from hell. Y'all, if you can see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, then your body works. And if your body works, then you have everything you need to win. Peace, family. I'm Yusha, artist, speaker, and coach, welcoming you to another drop of truth, discipline, and intentional alignment. This is Working and Winning with Great Care, where we tell people don't just strive to do great things, but do all things with great care, purpose, and intention. Listen, y'all, we trying to win, but winning ain't just the goal. We want to win right. Every week, I'm going to be pulling up to share what I'm learning, what I'm practicing, and what I'm challenging myself and you to walk out in real life, y'all. This ain't performance. This is practice. This is presence. And this is how we build what God intended. So wherever you are, right, whether you're on a walk, at work, in your car, wherever, tap in. Let's work and win with great care.
I am a recording artist, motivational speaker, master certified professional coach, and I do a lot of different things. I got to this place because I was somehow willing to believe that I could create a future that hadn't been seen yet. Got your team on the line like Cootie the coach. They just train on the parade, riding in the Escalade like Cootie the float. You don't know how to behave, you don't need a motherfucker. Tell you dope, you gon' be dope.
This is dope though. I love it, bro.
Cootie the coach, they just train on the parade. Right, when you hear all of the different things that I do, I've been told in my life, you do too much. And I'm glad to say that I did not follow those thoughts and allow that to hinder me from what I do. God gave me 5 things: speaking, teaching, coaching, training, and performing.
This is episode 4 of our first season of Working and Winning with Great Care. Today's topic is the mind of a winner, God consciousness. We're talking about the mindset of a winner, what it means to see ourselves, others, and our opportunities from the winning perspective. We'll explore a word, y'all, called Taqwa, which means God consciousness, right? We'll talk about how this term embodies the essence of high vibrational thinking, and then how to maintain this level of consciousness intentionally and how Taqwa leads to success. So whether you need some hope, some alignment, some rest, some motivation, or opportunities, this episode will help us have the right mindset to see and receive what we need, knowing that it's also what needs us. But first, let's recap last week's conversation, which was called Form, Elevate, and Repeat: the Power of Discipline. Y'all, last week, we learned that discipline actually comes from the Latin word disciplina, which means instruction, teaching, or learning. And the root word was actually discipulus, which means one who follows like a disciple. So discipline, y'all, we learned last week, is the practice of following instruction, right? To be disciplined is to have a set of learnings, principles, or codes that you follow and live by. To discipline yourself is to study the nature of your craft or desire, and then actively live by those teachings, establishing them as your code or operational methods. To discipline someone else, like your child or someone under you in your leadership, is to give them a structured plan, belief, or set of beliefs to follow. Does discipline lead to success? Yes. All right. It's essentially us following an established recipe to achieve a desired outcome. The caveat is, y'all, that one must have the right recipe for the outcome they desire. If we don't have the right recipe, we must be willing to remain studious, experimental, and in a posture of learning, right? Turning each mistake into a lesson, tweaking our recipe, and cooking over and over again until the dish is not only success, but ready to be gifted to the world. When we are committed to perfecting the recipe, getting in the kitchen every day, regardless of our previous day's success or failures, that's discipline. That's a key ingredient to habit-forming, life-improving circumstances. I want to say that again, y'all. When we are committed to perfecting the recipe by getting in the kitchen every day, regardless of our previous day's successes or failures, that's discipline. That is the key ingredient to habit-forming, life-improving circumstances. Now, that was last week's recap. Let's get back to this week, the mind of a winner, God consciousness. Let's start with the story. So here's the story, right? One day an angel was speaking with the creator. Curiously, the angel asked about the nature of human beings and how they could ever go astray. So the creator in his mercy gave the angel a vision, a glimpse of the world filled with divine light, a world where everything acknowledged the source that created it, where hearts beat to the rhythm of creation and truth was clear, the path was lit, and guidance walked in every soul. The angel watched in awe and said, surely no man could ever go wrong in a world like this. Then the creator showed the angels something else. He showed them a world without his influence, a world clouded by ego, greed, fear, and distraction, where men worshiped their own desires, forgetting the remembrance of the one who made them, where truth was hidden and every path forked in confusion. And the angel said, trembling, surely no man could ever go right in a world like this. Y'all, here lies a great mystery of our conscious nature as humans. We are always torn between both of the realities explained above and which one will dominate our thinking, right? This is similar to the glass half full, half empty conversation, right? With this, we are charged to remember that the divine infinite wisdom that lives in all of us, that gives birth to all knowledge and all things, is here. It's here, it's guiding us, it's whispering, it's calling us back to our original selves. We are charged, y'all, to be mindful that the world is loud with divergent plans, calling us in the opposite, calling us to distraction, calling us to be off course, calling us to be off target and away from the power of our true nature. If that's the case, the question is, what is the mind of the winner then, right? The mind of the winner is built on truth, faith, and rooted in Taqwa or God consciousness, right? Without the higher vibrational consciousness of the divine at the center of our thoughts, even our wins, y'all, are going to feel like losses. But with divine connection leading our perspectives, even our struggles can feel like signs of something better to come. The mind of the winner is built on the truth of his nature and the truth about nature. Let me say that again. The mind of the winner is built on the truth of his nature or her nature and the truth of nature. The truth of human nature, y'all, is that we were built and predestined to win, right? Winning, when I say working and winning, it's because winning is our nature and is actually a prerequisite for our existence. Whenever I do speaking engagements, I often tell people, don't look at me as a motivational speaker, right? I prefer to be viewed as a truth teller and a healer. My goal isn't to motivate at all, right? My true goal is to empower and liberate through nature's truth, and to make space for that truth to motivate us if we allow it. So in that spirit, I want to offer a biological truth here that proves that all of us are natural winners. We know this story already, but here's a different perspective on it. When our parents came together, right, to co-create us, our mothers had one available egg, right? Unless you were a part of a set, right? Twins, triplets, etc. Now, to fertilize that egg, our fathers released between 100 to 300 million sperm cells. So 100 million to 300 million sperm cells. That means hundreds of millions of us, right? With our non-existent competitors, our brothers and sisters who didn't make it. We all raced towards one destination. Out of that 300 million, only one could get to the egg and ignite the chemical reaction that forms little humans. And that one cell was you. That one cell was me. It was us. Out of all the possibilities, all those lives that could have existed, we were chosen. I don't believe that was random, y'all. I believe that it was divine selection and divine purpose. We didn't just survive some biological lottery, right? They talk about how life is the ultimate lottery. We don't just survive some biological lottery. We were ordained to win it, right? That's how our lives started. Not in failure, not in chance, but in victory. From the very beginning, right, the divine established a process in which every soul receives a body that has to first be the winner of its lot. Let me say that again. From the very beginning, The divine designed or established a process in which every soul is placed in a body that has to first be the winner of its lot. So when we talk about the mind of a winner, it's not about ego. No, it's about identity. It's about living with the awareness that before the world called us anything, before the world called us anything, our birth made us worthy. All right. Marginalized communities can boldly claim their human rights as equal members of the race because any human born is one who entered the race and won. So when we talk about the human race starts the moment that we leave our fathers. Not only did we win, y'all, but we did against impressive odds. All right. There may be things that we feel led to do in this life where we are told to do something safer, right? Something with less odds, something with more guaranteed returns, some work or profession with less competition. And though I understand that, right, this nature that I've described should encourage us to take the other course, right? If we feel the unyielding desire within us to pursue it, if we know that it is our calling, if we know that beating the odds is part of our nature, then we should forge forward, right? Even if it is against difficult odds, we should be able to say to ourselves, I've already beat those odds. The mind of a winner knows the laws of nature, y'all, right? Not only do you know your nature, but you know the laws of nature. If not in name, then at least by observed reality. Now, while there are many different laws of nature, right, I will push you here to study the 7 natural laws of the universe. So you can look those up. And the specific law that we're going to focus on today is called the Law of Polarity. So this law specifically teaches us that everything in creation comes with its opposite, right? There's no up without down. There's no success without struggle, no clarity without confusion. So in other words, opposition is actually part of divine order, right? In a way. What looks like failure is often just the other side of success in motion. What feels like darkness is simply the setup for light to reveal itself. So when we are conscious of this truth and faithful of its reality, we stop resisting the lows and we start reading them. Because we know that the opposite of the low is the high. So if the low exists, the high exists, right? If there's a difficult moment that exists, there's a moment of ease that also exists for us. And so what we do is we stop resisting those difficult moments and we start reading them to get the instruction, the lesson, or the material that we need to find the ease. Understanding, y'all, that even the pain has purpose. We learn that we're not actually being punished, right? In challenging moments, we're being prepared. The mind of the winner doesn't just celebrate the peaks, they understand the valleys because through polarity, we realize that every difficulty carries within it the seed of its opposite ease, growth, and divine elevation. And so, and it's not just a mindset shift here, right? That we're talking about. It's also a higher frequency alignment connected to the winner's energy. Now, I want to stop and give a note here, a note of conclusion, right? I understand that this point can be challenging to absorb for some because the challenges are real, right? They hurt. It can be hard to see them through or see through them at all, right? The truth about nature is that a caterpillar, though, get this context. The truth about nature is that a caterpillar almost dies in the cocoon to become a butterfly, right? The seed has to break painfully through its own body or shell in the darkest moment of its existence and fight its way to sunlight to become a tree. Coal, right, has to be smashed under heat, time, and pressure to become a precious jewel we call diamond, right? Even gold is not created in comfort, right? Gold is actually created in cosmic violence. And once it's pulled from the earth, it still has to experience the extreme heat of fire to be purified of impurities and become the best usable version of itself. And that's how the divine makes value. That's how the divine made us, right? So when life applies pressure, my push for you is that when life applies pressure, when everything feels like it's collapsing, don't curse the process. You might just be in the middle of becoming gold. And I love y'all. Now let's stay connected. Let's talk about faith for a second, right? Once we understand the nature of ourselves and the laws of nature, right, the winning mind moves through life with supreme faith, right? Faith, not in the non religious sense, right? Um, but if faith, by definition, is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And this should translate to us as having faith in the divine, confidence in the divine, faith in ourselves, confidence in ourselves, faith in nature, or confidence in nature, and faith in each other. Now, I want to remind us of a verse I explained in episode 3 about discipline, right? Which says, verily, in time, all mankind is losing, except those that have faith and join together in the mutual encouragement of truth, patience, and constance. Now, how true is this, right? That all human beings are losing. And isn't this contradictory to what I've said before? And my response is that actually it isn't, right? That really it's emphasizing the truth of what I said before, right? I love this text because the way it says it, right? All people are losing in time because of time, too, right? Because of this space of time, and every human being born must pass. We are losing to a certain extent, except those who have what? It says, except those who have faith. And so I love this text because it's putting so much importance on faith, so much, in fact, that it says you will lose without it. So, what does it look like when a person has faith? Um, Here, I love the example of a farmer, right? Let's take a farmer named John. Every time John plants a seed, it is with faith. Right? John has absolute confidence in the earth he's chosen for his seed, confidence in the process that he's been not only taught to him, but proven to him through working with his dad growing up, confidence in himself that he can figure it out. This isn't a blind faith that believes something is going to happen out of nowhere, right? This is a faith that the systems work, that the system of the soil works, that the system of the seed works. This is faith that the system of caring for the land works. He has to have uh, his faith because once he plants the seed, y'all, it disappears. By nature of going out to the field each day and caring for the land, is faith that the seed is being directed by the land towards its destiny. Let me say that again, right? By nature of going out to the field every day and caring for the land is faith that the seed is being directed by the land towards its destiny. He is now entrusted the land with the seed, with the system of the land and the system of the seed, hoping, knowing, having faith that the seed is being directed towards its ultimate destiny. And this faith is not predicated on singular outcomes, right? And what I mean by that is John is going to have he's going to have some seasons of great harvest, and he's going to have some seasons with a smaller harvest. But he's confident in believing that if he plants, that if he protects the seed, that if he harvests the crops consistently, that he will win, maintain, and feed his family, regardless of the on or off seasons. This concept, y'all, also reminds me of NBA star Giannis Antetokounmpo, who a star for the Milwaukee Bucks, who was also asked if he saw his season as a failure because his team did not win a championship. Giannis, y'all, struggles to stay composed in his answer, but he makes a profound point nonetheless. He asked the journalist about his job. He questioned whether the journalist sees each year he doesn't get a promotion as a failure. He reminded the journalist that Michael Jordan, who played basketball for 15 years, though he won 6 rings, he asked him, do we consider the other 9 years that Michael Jordan played as a failure? He was pointing out that though winners appreciate the recognized outcomes, the greatest winners are truly addicted to the process. The process of disciple work is the evidence of faith. It is faith in action. If we are to win, we must have faith that if we stay the course, then the inevitable is victory. Discipline is the proof that faith exists. Now I want to give y'all an extended thought here, right? Discipline is the proof that faith exists, yes. But to be disciplined to a path, way, or course, we must first have a plan to follow. So one of the first signs of faith in something, y'all, is actually building a plan to reach the desired outcome, right? Following a plan that someone gave you to get to an outcome that others have achieved is one level of faith, right? Going to a mentor or someone and saying, hey, how did you do this? Taking from them their direct plan to get to a thing is one level of faith, yes. But building a plan for an outcome that hasn't been achieved, to achieve a vision that only you possess for yourself, specifically tailored to your gifts, and believing that that plan, when no one else can see or support your vision, that is a different level of faith. Because now you're trying to be the trailblazer in a sense. You are going over the hill first to find something that no one else has seen. That is a different level of faith. Now, both levels of faith are good, but they are not the same. Now to the last part. The mind of a winner has to have taqwa. Now, what is taqwa? Taqwa is an Arabic word meaning God consciousness, which essentially means having reverence for and remembrance of the divine, right? And this is not just a thought, y'all. This is a condition of the heart, right? To have taqwa is to have a heightened awareness of the divine in your heart, right? His perspectives, his laws, his principles, etc., and to strive for full alignment with those things. Taqwa should shape the way we think, move, and be in the world. And in some aspects, Taqwa is kind of like the bracelets from back in the day that we used to wear, the WWJD bracelets. What would Jesus do? Now I'm going to change that to WWGD. What would God do? But then it leads to this question like, what would God do? Right? What would the divine see? What would the divine see in you? What would the divine see in any of his creation? What would the divine see in your neighbor? Right? What would the divine think about a thing, right? How would the divine address problems, right? If the divine was in you and you were operating in alignment with the divine, how would you and the divine address your problems? This is in no means, right, an attempt to be self-righteous or overly spiritual. No, it's just a framework of thinking that empowers the winner to move with love, good character, and confidence, which I sometimes refer as Godfidence, right? To bring others in, right? Those in the spiritual world would refer to this as high vibrational thinking or moving in alignment with the spirit, right? This idea of being tapped in with the divine. Now, there are so many reasons why this is important, but I'm going to discuss the impact that it may have on your leadership. So let's lean into leadership, right? Once we can see ourselves through the mind of the divine as winners, the most perfect out of a batch of 300 million, right? Perfectly designed to fulfill a specific purpose. This naturally improves the relationship that we have with ourselves, right? Uh, when we see in us, right, the power and possibility of ourselves beyond our mistakes, and we offer the same level of hope and grace for others, this leads us to having better perspectives and relationships with others, and in turn leads to improved ways to serve and lead. Now, remember the story of the angel, right, that I gave you earlier, who was asking God about the nature of man and how he could go astray from his good nature. The visions that God or the divine gave him as one with the creator's influence. The visions that the divine gave him, was one with the creator's influence and one without, right? Where the beautiful one was the one including the creator's influence. Now, to really understand this, you must first understand what it means, what influence is, right? So influence is having the capacity to have an effect on the character development or behavior of someone or something. So this is really talking about the divine's effect, the ability to have an effect, uh, development or behavior on nature, on creation. When we are tapped in with the divine, we are being able to experience nature with God's effect on it, experience people with God's perspective on it, experience our life from God's perspective, right? What would God see? What would the divine see? What would the divine do? When we're addressing problems in alignment with the divine from Taqwa, we're saying, how would I address this a problem in the way the divine would, right? So for this effect to take place in us, we must see ourselves through the true nature and destiny that the divine designed us with. The beginning of our talk today dives into these personal and natural truths, right? So we experienced that when I talked about how you are a natural winner and right the natural truth of the law of polarity. Now, as I mentioned in the channel section of every live, right, knowledge is not power. applied knowledge is power. It's not powerful until you use it, right? It's not enough just to know these truths. In fact, these are not hidden truths. We all know the things I expressed to you today to be scientifically and biologically true. Some may not have processed them the way that I expressed them, but we have to do more than just know them, right? We have to truly embrace them and the reality of us. And when we do this, when we embrace these truths about ourselves, it gives us the permission to embrace these truths about everyone else, changing the level of intention we have with each other, knowing essentially that everyone we meet, just like us, is a winner if given the right circumstances to grow. I want to tell you a story about my aunt. So I have an aunt named Barbara Jean, right? In our family, she's the green thumb lady in our family, right? She has a house full of plants and she manages to keep them all alive. Now, for one, she's studious and has a keen understanding of each of her plants and what they need, what amount of water, sunlight, what type of soil they need, etc. Right? But one thing she does is she gives them all love equally, right? She sings to her plants, she speaks to them lovingly, and nurtures the environment to be a place where her plants love to be. Her plants love her house, you can tell. Now, if she sees one of her plants turning colors or not doing so well, right, she takes into account what type of plant it is. One, she takes into account what type of plant it is. Then she makes a change in the environment to give her plant what it needs to recover. Right? She doesn't yell at her plant. Right? She doesn't tell it how ugly it looks. She doesn't scold it for not beautifying itself. She simply gives it the right environment to grow. I would say that my aunt has the divine's influence on her heart. Right? She never sees her plants as dying. Even when they look like they aren't doing well, she tells them how beautiful they are and she nurses them back to health. My aunt sees the best in her flowers, even when they are not at their best. And when it comes to people, she strives to do the same. Y'all, this is the essence of leadership. To see the potential in people, to know their inherent greatness is a culture or climate shift away from restoration. Let me say that again. This is the nature of leadership, to see the best in people, to see the potential in people, and know that their inherent greatness is a culture or climate shift away from restoration. God consciousness, y'all, Taqwa, allows us to see people the way that the divine sees them, as his creation, with all of the ingredients to be exactly what they were designed for, right? And seeing their challenging ways as the damage that the world, ego, and the negative forces of the universe has caused them. Not as their reality, but what the world has impressed upon them. This aspect of leadership, y'all, doesn't really need words, right? It's about culture cultivation, right? If a human being cannot be their best with us, safe with us, caring with us, human with us, right? Hardworking, studious, striving, then we have not provided the right environment, or we haven't given the environment enough time to take its effect on it. So one of those, either we haven't provided the right environment or we haven't given it enough time. Knowing that we are asking them to become something good, right? They came into this world. We came into this world as babies without crying. Right? We were already good. When the divine created us, he created us and said, this is good. Right? We are helping people return to their good when we lead them this way. Right? When we speak to the goodness in them, regardless of their actions, their thoughts, their behaviors that day, we speak to the goodness that they came to this planet with. When we do that, we're helping people return to their good. And that's what healing is all about, right? Returning to the original form that was good before the world broke us. Once again, that's what healing is all about. Returning to the original form that was good before the world broke it. Now, note, leadership is not a one-size-fit-all culture program. No, right? Though my aunt keeps a loving, song-filled environment for all of her plants, the truth is that she knows each one of them individually and provides exactly what they need to be their best. Right? Similarly, the divine knows all of us and has at his disposal, without end, all that we need to prosper in this life. To be a great leader, y'all, right? One, you must know your people. Two, you must speak to their greatness. And three, you must cultivate in the environment where they need to be human, not to be your worker, not to be your servant, not to be your subservient. No, you must cultivate in the environment what they need to be human, right? Know them, speak to their greatness, cultivate in an environment where they need to be human. And when you do this, this will naturally bring the best out of them. All right. Additional note. Though all of us are designed to win, right? We are not designed to be competitors fighting at the cost of goodness. All right. We are designed to compete with each other in doing good things. We are designed to compete with each other in healing, in serving, in sharing, in loving, right? Romantic partners listening. Compete with each other in service to one another. Educators, right? Compete with each other in creative projects for the kids. For my spiritual people out there, compete with one another in affirming each other, in prayer for each other, right? Doctors, compete with one another in helping people heal. Whatever the collective work may be, right? We are to compete with each other in doing good. That way, right? The universal win is inevitable as we get back multiply the good that we've put into the world in competing with our brothers and sisters and being good. Now let's get to the challenge for this week. All right. Each week, I initiate a challenge for us to connect us to the topic of today, right? It is important that we leave from the inspired thought to produce action. As I said earlier, growing up, I was told that knowledge is power. But when I got to college, a man told me that applied knowledge is power. And so, in that spirit, I want to be intentional here about using these lives to not only challenge myself, but to give space for you to challenge yourself as well. Now, the challenge this week is a little different. We normally do the challenges together, but the challenge this week are these questions that I want you to write down and journal. All right. These answers will be private just for you. You can also get access to these questions or these journal prompts through the workbook. So if you have the workbook, if you print it out, you can write on directly on the workbook. So the first question is, one, am I living like a winner? Someone God already chose, or am I still trying to prove my worth to the world that didn't create me? I'm going to ask you that again. Am I living like a winner? Someone God already chose, or am I still trying to prove my worth to the world that didn't create me? The second point I want you to consider and journal on is it says, where in my life have I been resisting the fire that might actually be refining me into gold? I'll ask that again. Where in our lives have we been resisting the fire that might actually be refining us into gold? And the last question is, what would change in how I move, decide, or lead if I truly believe God was present in every detail of the process? How would I change? What would change about how I move, decide, or lead if I truly believe the divine was part of every detail of the process? Now, I don't have an example for you this week because I want this to be private writing, right? So there's no example for you, but really take some time to sit down and think about these two questions. And if you want to share, you can always, comment on this post, comment here on YouTube, or find me on Instagram and respond to my DMs and let me know how you feel about those three responses if you want to share. Lastly, right, we got to talk about the practice, right? How do I practice a mindset, a winning mindset? How you practice a winning mindset is one, truth, right? Having faith rooted in evidence, what we call religious mind building and action. Now, truth we've already talked about. What is that? Truth about yourself, truth about the nature of who you are, created to be, and then truth about nature. And then allowing your faith, right? This belief in nature, belief in self, belief in the divine to be rooted in evidence. And what do I mean by rooted in evidence, right? We're not talking about, as we talked before, we're not talking about blind faith. We're talking about looking, one, at nature and its processes, but then two, looking at the things that have already happened in your life. Many of us, I'm from the South, right? And from the Southern Baptist, we know that every week there was going to be opportunity for somebody to stand up and give a testimony, right? A testimony of how things have been worked out for their good. And so that's a faith that's rooted in evidence, right? Because even if we haven't seen it in our lives, we've seen it in others. But we can also use the example of nature. One example that we use in nature is we know, as the farmer says, he plants the seed. When he plants the seed, it disappears. All right. But even though it disappears, there's a process, there's a system that's working, right? The soil has a system. The soil, when met with the seed, has a system. The seed has a system within itself that when it's planted, it will naturally invoke its system and become what it's supposed to be. And so for us, we have to have faith rooted in that same evidence that when planted in the soil, in the right environment, we will grow and become the thing that we were always meant to be. Right? Our key is not to try to become a thing. Our key is to find the right environments, and we will naturally become a thing. All right. Then you got to have religious mind building. I call religious mind building not in the sense of like institutionalized religion, but the word religion outside of spiritual doctrine is actually means anything that you do habitually. So when we're talking about religious mind building, we're talking about establishing the habits that connect to the plan or vision that you say you have. Right. We talked about that earlier, that faith is evident in being disciplined, but it's also evident in creating the plan in the first place. You can only be disciplined to a plan that you've created. So religious mind building means consistently doing the work every day of building your mind, of building your habits, of building your speech that is directly aligned with the truth of your nature, right? The power of your nature, the truth of your dreams and goals. And lastly, is action. Do the work of today, not the work of tomorrow, not the work of yesterday, but the work that's in front of you today, right? As you seek to push forward to get to the dreams that you seek to build, there are going to be opportunities that come your way, and you have to be responsive to them. And you have to have discernment about which ones are truly right for you and which ones are not. But here's the truth. If you move with the right spirit and heart, then all of the opportunities are for you because they will all be worked out for your good. No. Number 2. So I want to go back and read number 2. Number 2 says, where in my life have I been resisting the fire that might actually be refining me into gold? I want to note here, y'all, that number 2 can be hard, right? Especially when you already feel like we're struggling, right? But note, there are struggles we're used to, struggles that fall on us, and struggles that we choose. Now, the struggles that we are used to are the ones we've learned to survive in, right? These are struggles for sure, right? But we've learned to navigate them and maintain. So to an extent, they are not challenging us to grow, right? That we just in the struggle. Now, 2, right? The struggles that fall on us, there are struggles that fall on us, right? Unexpected things like illness, transition of loved ones, job transitions, and others, right? If we apply the law of polarity in these moments, then we can find the lessons or the silver linings and use them to improve our capacity. These struggles can grow us, right? They ultimately will grow us, but that is depending on the perspective we choose to take. But this is not what number 2 is referring to either. So even though struggles, hardships, fires may fall on us, they can only grow us if we take the perspective that they're there to grow us. Otherwise, we can get stuck in them. But once again, this is not the fire that number 2 is referring to, right? The fire that might actually be refining me into gold. These struggles are the ones we intentionally take on, knowing that we have not fully developed the skills to achieve them, but trusting in our capacity to figure them out. I'll say that again. The fires that might actually be refining us into gold. These struggles are the ones we intentionally take on, knowing that we have not fully developed the skills to achieve them, but trust in our capacity to figure them out. The challenges that stress us, y'all, but in a way that leads to capacity in the spaces we need. These are the struggles that lead to growth, healing, success, love, and community, right? The ones that scare us the most because they may leave us the most exposed, unable to say that this just fell on me, but I actually have to walk in the responsibility that you chose this struggle. You hear that? The ones that scare us and leave us the most exposed, right? But when struggles fall on us, we can always have the excuse of, I don't know what to do here. This fell on me. But when we choose that struggle that we know is going to get us to the end, we have to live with the responsibility that we chose that struggle, right? What struggle are you reluctant to choose despite the reward? I used to ask this question all the time, but after talking with y'all today, it may be of greater meaning, of great importance, right? So here's an additional journal prompt that I want you to take on. It's not connected to the workbook. It's just an additional thought. This is the question I want to ask you. Would you sacrifice 2 to 5 years of extreme struggle, right? Would you sacrifice 2 to 5 years of extreme struggle, life-altering struggle, for 30 years of extreme ease? I'm going to ask that question again. Would you sacrifice 2 to 5 years of extreme struggle for 30 years of extreme ease? Before we close out today, y'all, I always like to offer some additional resources. So here's some additional resources where you can get this learning and these challenges from. One is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Check out that book. I love it. It just talks about how habits actually are set up to get us to where we need to go. Another one is Principles by Ray Dalio. The resource I really want to give you out today is a book called Factfulness. This book is written by Hans Rosling. This is a book that talks about the true facts of the world, the real things that's going on, right? There's so many stories about the world being dismal, this dark place that is going to doom. Factfulness is a book that really lays out the facts based off data of things that are happening in the world, from natural disasters to occurrences. And it shows that good is winning, right? That the perspective of the divine is winning, right? But it's winning amongst those who find it. And so what this book even more tells us, right? Factfulness is that we have the ability every day to choose the perspective that we want to see the world through, that we want to see ourselves through and see each other through. And we can choose the one that is influenced by the divine, or we can choose the one that is absent of the divine's influence. And that's our choice, right? That's our free will. So that's a book that I want to give you as a resource that you can tap into. Now, the 4-step working and winning process. Let's get to it. The last segment, y'all, is called Working and Winning, right? If you can see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, then your body works. And if your body works, you have everything you need to win. We say it all the time, right? All you need now is the how. So here's a 4-step process we can use to bring our dreams, plans, and intentional efforts into fruition. We will revisit these weekly and set new goals and intentions. Now, here are the 4 steps. The first step is vision and belief. The second step is speech. The third step is gratitude. And the 4th step is action. And let me explain them separately, all right, and then make space for you all to process what they may mean. So 1, again, vision and belief, right? This is something that you clearly see or believe is possible for you this week. This is how we're setting this up, right? What is your vision or belief? What is something that you see clearly or believe is possible for you this week? 2, speech is how will you use the vibrant power of words to create for yourself, right? How will you speak over that belief? Now, 3 is gratitude. It's a question of how will you lighten your spirit? How will you find joy, love, and peace and be receptive to all of the good that's available to you? So what I want you to do is to write down at least 3 things that you're thankful for, right? Practice gratitude as a means of lightening your spirit and connecting to joy. And then the last one, action, right? What will you do to move forward? What is the work of this week and how will you track the alignment and purpose? And so to establish what the work of your week is, I want you to write down at least 3 things you know you must do to move closer to accomplishing the thing that you want to see happen this week, to the vision of this week. All right. And let that be the work that you do to move forward. Now, while you all are working on that, you can definitely do that work in the workbook. And like I said, anyone who would love to follow up with me, you can always comment here on this YouTube page, or you can find me on Instagram and you can comment in my DMs, right? But y'all, if this hit for you, all right, I want you to definitely make a comment. Let me know how you feel about this particular one, right? The mind of a winner, God consciousness. And then if you know a brother or sister, someone who really needs this reminder, send it to them, right? And let's win with great care. All right. So listen, if this message spoke to you, imagine what it could do to unlock the hearts of your team, school, or organization if it was live in the room, right? I don't just want to speak at your event. I want to inspire hearts. I want to connect, inspire, and challenge us to be the best of ourselves so that we can get the promise that we deserve, right? And I want to move spirits and leave your people ready to work and win with great care. So bring me to speak at your next event, your retreat, or your leadership session. Bring me there. Let's create a moment, right? And let's create a moment that becomes a movement. And so if you want to do that, please go on my DMs or in this comment on YouTube and just type the word speak. And I will follow up with you so we can talk about what your specific organization team needs. Now, right, if you need coaching, right, if you're ready to live big and start moving with clarity, conviction, and care, then I got you, right? My one-on-one group coaching programs are designed to help you align your mindset, improve your leadership, and then have the daily habits that are aligned with your higher purpose. So if you want to explore some coaching options with me, take the first step towards that sustainable growth, then you can also, in these comments or in my DM, you can type the word coach, and I'll follow up with you as well. We can figure out how to get to the next level. As I introduce myself before y'all, I'm Yusha Assad, artist, speaker, and master certified professional coach, here to elevate the condition of my people using the lens of speaking, teaching, coaching, training, and performing. My goal is to help us to see that there is a promise available to us. There is a good life, an excellent life that is available to us when we develop the mindset of working and winning with great care and do things in a certain type of way. So the promise is here and it's coming. I know you're going to get yours. See you soon. Love you. Peace.
The greatest things don't happen overnight. They take time and patience. So instead of waiting, struggle and be patient, 'cause greatness has been prepared for you.
They think it happens overnight, but greatness is a story. I couldn't settle for average, I broke it with it for glory. Moved about a complacement, changed my address to victory. So when it's testimony, I'm really just writing history. They talk about the successes of life like it's a mystery. I disagree, 'cause for me it's a product of my decisions. Trusting in Most High is my first thought, and the rest of between staying humble and never asking for permission.